Some wounds don't trend. They don't go viral. They don't get hashtags. They sit quietly behind makeup and smiles. Today in the recording room sits a woman the country first saw in Veer, opposite Salman Khan. Big launch, big lights, big expectations, and then big criticism. No film family, no powerful surname, no safety net. When Veer released, she wasn't just introduced as an actress. She was measured, judged, compared. She didn't rush into every offer. She chose carefully. Because when you stand alone, one wrong step can cost everything. Then came Hate Story 3. Bold scenes, loud headlines. She has said it clearly. She had a family to support. What she did was on screen, as part of a role. I wasn't selling my body, she said. I needed to sleep at night. Coming from a conservative background, it wasn't easy. But survival has its own morality. Today she talks about body shaming, about being called names, about being told she couldn't act. But she says something simple. Judge me by my work, not my weight. For her, fitness became about control, about owning her life. Now, as she builds her own skincare brand, she isn't chasing perfection. She is choosing peace with herself. This isn't a makeover story. It's a growing up story. It's about a girl who was judged for her body and decided to live in it anyway. This is the Pooja Bhatt Show, and with me is Zareen Khan. Not a headline, not a scandal, but a woman who chose to stand her ground and stay whole.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Pooja. I'm so overwhelmed. I got like a little emotional. Literally goosebumps. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here and thank you for being you. You are a ray of sunshine in an otherwise very bleak industry, I must say. But let's start at the beginning with your magnum opus called Veer.
Yes.
Which was a launch that most people would die for. But did that become like an albatross around your neck?
Oh my God. It did, and how? Because first of all, I never ever as a kid growing up had this dream of becoming an actress. I never ever saw myself as a perfect girly girl. I was always very tomboyish. In our family also, there was never a difference between how a boy is brought up and how a girl is brought up. And since we were just two sisters, me being the older one, I was like the brother. When Veer happened, that whole thing had to change. Coming from a non-filmy background and then put into such an intimidating environment was already a lot to come to terms with. I don't know whether this is a defect or what, but whatever I'm feeling inside, I would never show.
Yeah.
So, yes, I was very intimidated. And of course, that time I was just some 20, 21-year-old, very, very childish, not like the very polished 20, 21-year-olds we have now.
Yeah, they're so full of confidence. I'm like, where does it come from?
Oh my God. So here I was like trying to be all okay, but I was very intimidated. Was told to put on weight when I had already lost so much weight. You know, when you grow up in a desi or an Indian household, the weight and everything is already spoken about from home and your trolling starts from home. But I was always very comfortable in my own skin. Maybe because, as I said, I was never like a girly girl who would feel like, oh my God, my weight is this. And the main reason also for being that was, you know, my mother somewhere, I think now as an adult, when I've gotten a little bit more understanding of life, I think that time, because she was also quite young, she wanted to live vicariously through me and she wanted me to become a doctor, a heart surgeon, because she is a heart patient. So that whole thing that, she'll grow up and she'll become a surgeon and she'll work on me. And then in my head, I was like, okay, I have to become a doctor. So if a doctor is weighing 50 kg or 100 kg, how does it matter?
Correct.
So I came up with that whole thing and somehow never let anybody bully me even when I was 100. My bullying and my trolling started when I lost half of that weight and became a part of this industry.
And then you were asked to put on that weight.
Yeah, because I was playing a princess of the 18th century
Right,
who were supposed to be a little voluptuous. I was supposed to put on some 5 to 8 kgs. But that did not go down well with the audience and even with the, film fraternity or media, because I was, of course, a newcomer. I do not come from a very strong filmy background, as you say, where I have like either a very strong boyfriend or a very strong father or just a family who's going to speak on my behalf.
And provide you with a roadmap and tell you that this is how you deal with situations.
Or speak on my behalf that, okay,
Correct.
she was told to put on weight and, this is how it is supposed to be. But trolling came from everywhere. Criticism came from everywhere. After the film released, my looks were compared to an already established person in the industry. My weight became like a national issue that, oh my God, she is, so fat and this and that. And that time I couldn't understand one bit. Like I was already very intimidated with this entire environment. And then I became all the more intimidated because I was very, very young that time. At one point, then I didn't want to get out. Like, the moment I get out, they'll write something or the other about me.
Yeah, the scrutiny can be painful. Yeah.
And though I come from a very strong-willed mindset and all of that, but come on, it's in the newspapers and God knows how many people are reading it. And that kind of got a little difficult to deal with that, oh my God, like what have I done?
No,
I have just followed instructions.
I can completely identify with that because when I produced my first film, Tamanna, I was 25 years old.
Wow.
And I had to travel the length and breadth of India to get tax exemption because the film industry said, ye to art film hai. So I had to get tax exemption because those days there were no multiplexes. Wherever you go in this country to meet people in the ministry, etc., they, North Indian aggressive hospitality, kaju kishmish kha lo, bread pakode kha lo. And I must have gained about 9-10 kilos in that process. It was front page news. And I remember asking this question. I said, I'm India's youngest female producer. Aren't you going to focus on my achievements instead of making my weight into an issue? And I was appalled by the, frivolity of it all. So I can completely identify with that. I'm like, this is all you see? You don't see that I made a film about female infanticide? But I think in the 90s somehow, I think they were more accommodating to different body types.
Yes.
But when you got into the fray, I think this was 2010.
Yes.
Yeah, that's when the
scrutiny switch was happening.
But you said something fascinating that remained with me about the tigress philosophy, where you said that my stretch marks are my tigress stripes.
Yes.
And I'm going to claim them and I'm going to show them off and I'm not going to hide them. I thought that was just genius. Because, I have stretch marks and I celebrate them.
Of course. It's about everything that you have, survived and endured. Why hide it?
Life is imprinting something on you. But that shift happened when then?
Honestly, I don't even have a track of it, as life kept happening to me. Because from a very early age, things started happening in my life. This film and whatever. I was still young then, but before that, this very major incident happened where my parents separated. And I think that created a huge impact on the way I thought. Overnight, I had to grow up.
Right.
And I didn't know how to do that. Like, I'm going to be 40 this year. I still don't know how to do that.
Well, you don't know anything close to 40, I can assure you.
But that whole thing, okay, that I am the eldest daughter and now I'm responsible of taking care of my mother and my sister. Because now there's no male figure, there's no brother. So that whole thing just came on to me. So just learning, I think, every day how to do this. I think I'm still learning, but now I've always been childlike and somehow that inner child, I think by default, it's just there. It doesn't want to go away. It doesn't want to grow up.
That's great because I think that's another battle. We have to hold on to that child in us. We really have to. But this whole thing about we must love our body and we must be comfortable in our skin. These are all blurbs I find on Instagram and social media.
These are just quotes.
Yeah.
Nobody's really following them. Especially in our industry, nobody's following it.
You are on a fascinating journey now with regards to your fitness. I saw videos of you doing some very serious lifting.
Yes.
And it's such a wonderful sight to see a woman lifting heavy weights and thriving in it. And people think thin is healthy, and they don't understand that getting strong, keeping your sense of balance. You said something that remained with me. I can lift my mother and run now, you said.
Yes.
So
that's the goal.
Yeah. So that's quite amazing because there's still this fallacy that, women don't need to lift weights because then you get a certain kind of a body that we don't want.
I've also heard this a lot when, I had started. So, when I started on my fitness journey, it was not to become an actress. It was to become an air hostess, because that time when my mom and dad separated and the entire responsibility came on me, I had to give up my education and I had to start working. And the easiest or the most rewarding job that I thought that time was of an air hostess, because I have cousins who used to work in the airline industry. And I'm like, okay, wow, this is nice, because you just need to be, pass your 12th standard, and it's a well-paying job, and plus you get to travel, which is something that I love. But then I was 100 kg and nobody was going to hire a 100 kg air hostess. So the weight loss journey did not start in a very healthy way, because I did not had the direction.
Right.
I was just Googling things and, reading on the internet and trying out all the possible diets.
Yeah, even I've done every absurd diet in the world.
Oh my God, there's this one 7-day diet where you lose some 3 kg, then there's some liquid diet, and oh my God, I've done it all. I've done my yoga, I have done Pilates, I've done those boot camps. But I think weight training is something that I really enjoyed, because it started, of course, okay, we need to lose weight, and you go to the gym and the trainer tells you to do these things. But then the fact that you realize, okay, this is something that my body is enjoying, and I am mentally enjoying this, that, oh, this is me.
Most important.
I am so strong internally. I did not know I could lift this much. And yes, everybody around me, especially girls, no, are you crazy? You want to look like a man? I said, first of all, it's not that easy for women to build muscles.
Exactly.
Okay. And secondly, there are people who are working out for 20 years of their life and still not being able to build muscles. You think I'll go for 1 week and look like a man?
Absolutely.
If that is the case, I'll be so happy. But I think I am my own mother. I've taken care of the child inside me by myself, like educated it. When I felt low, there was nobody around. Since I did not really have somebody to kind of share my heart with. Now I have my mother who I have to take care of. I have a younger sister who I have to take care of. I can't go and vent out to them, because now I have to be the stronger face in front of them.
Correct.
So yeah, I think that whole thing, just learning, reading, I read a lot, watching videos that are going to help me understand things better. So I think a lot of reading and research, and luckily, because I did not have immediate people like that, God sent people in my life who could teach me, certain things at certain points in my life. And I think that has just shaped me.
They say when the student is ready, the master appears.
Yeah, definitely.
I think your trainer must be thanked, because I've seen you work out in your videos and I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Because I just did my first 110 kilo deadlift like a few weeks ago. And I was like, I did that.
Exactly. Remember, you know that feeling? Oh my God.
And then after you've done that, you don't give a damn.
True, exactly.
So it's amazing. So even I have a trainer who believes in baby steps, but works a lot on form.
Yes.
And that's really important. But I mean, there's little things that you can do for yourself in everyday life become so much easier.
Definitely.
And since you like traveling, lifting your suitcase and just walking.
And with me, I am I travel either by myself or, with my family. And with my family, I am like their boy, their everything. So all the bags, their shopping bags and everything is in my hand, and they're like nicely shopping. So I have to be that strong to do that.
So after Veer, you did this song in Ready, and then Houseful 2, and then you did this Punjabi film.
Yes.
Jat James Bond, for which you got damn good reviews.
Yeah, I even got like the best debut award for Punjabi.
So you enjoyed that experience?
I loved it. I just felt that they recognized the kind of potential which I hoped our Hindi film industry would have recognized.
Yeah. And then Hate Story happened.
Yes.
It was a huge hit.
Yes.
I created Jism. It was the first erotic film of the times. I know how dreary it is to shoot love scenes where you need to create an air, first of all, of comfort and of respect.
Yeah.
But what struck me about you is the innocence. It's never the act, it's the attitude. And that's something that my dad had told me many years ago when I did my first kissing scene in Sadak. I had to kiss Sanjay Dutt. And I wanted to crawl under the nearest rock. And he said, I'm not going to kiss her. I've seen her as a child. So my father said, that's complete hypocrisy. If you can't kiss her, then you have no business kissing anybody else's daughter. And he told me then, he said, Pooja, it's about how you feel inside.
That's true.
If you're going to feel vulgar, you're going to look vulgar.
Exactly.
So you got to feel that's the most pure thing in the world. And then it's going to be fine. So that's a lesson that I still carry with me.
Wow.
That is something that you have as well. I do believe that there's a female gaze and a male gaze. Murder, for example, was a male gaze.
Yeah.
So how was that process for you? Your co-stars, you said you had great camaraderie with. What was the most awkward part of it? What was the easiest part of it?
So, of course, there were like 10,000 questions in my head before I finally said okay for Hate Story. I don't know how many times I took the narration, just making sure that have I heard it right? What am I supposed to do? And then the biggest dilemma, honestly, was home.
Right.
Because I, from a very long time, like I stopped giving a damn about the world. I never cared. The only person who really matters to me in my life is my mother and her opinions. So when that happened, I of course had a chat with her because her father, who's no more now, was a Haji and he used to go to the mosque 5 times and all of that. And he used to stay with us that time. I'm like, I'm very worried about Nana.
And his response?
Yeah. I mean, of course, we're not going to make him see it. But I said, but people who might come to the masjid would.
Right.
And how do we deal with that? Like, are you okay with this? Because she's like, don't think so much. Nobody from the outside is coming to feed us.
Beautifully said.
And not that you are going and selling your body.
Not at all.
This is an act. So when my mother gave me that confidence, I was like, okay. Then, of course, I did the film and I was so lucky to have Sharman, Karan and Vishal, the director, because it was just so easy. As I said, I am quite tomboyish. I myself am not like a typical girl. First of all, it got shot at a later stage when we had already become quite good friends. So though it looked quite hot and steamy, the moment there was a cut, it was like we're shooting for a comedy film in the background. So I think that whole rapport between all of us made it very easy. Yeah. And all the boys made sure that, no extra people are there. Every time they're like, if you're feeling even a little discomfort, just say. And it was shot in a certain manner. People think that God knows what are we doing there once the camera is going on. But you have to be so aware. And then, of course, once the movie released, there was a lot of positive feedback. But then there were a lot of negative feedback also, as if I don't know what they saw on screen. And in fact, some of my relationships also, these people, they come in my life and they're like, okay. And this is now I'm not teaching. So when the first time this happened, I was like, okay, I thought you knew. Then now whenever somebody shows a little bit of interest in me, I'm like, right? I've done these kind of movies. Oh, yeah, we know. But then when they see it, oh my God, I'm like, hello, this is me doing something on screen. You guys go fuck around with like 300, 400 women just because it's not documented. You're not better than me.
No,
so don't even try to be something you're not.
This comes from a place of ignorance because they do not understand that shooting a love scene is the most dreary job because it's so technical in that sense. There's a thermocol here, there's a light here. It has to look a certain way from that angle.
Oh, did you enjoy it?
Exactly.
How?
Yeah.
How?
Absolutely.
We don't even realize it's happening.
Also, another thing I felt is that people assume that the male actors are having great fun.
Yeah.
And they are often more awkward than the females. I remember even tweeting from the sets of Jism 2, watching paint dry is more exciting than shooting a love scene. The people were like, what do you mean? I said, what is your fascination with this? Yeah. How come nobody asks us, how do you shoot a death scene?
Yeah.
You're shooting an action sequence, you're doing a lovemaking scene. It's as technical.
I think it's all about the mindset and the mentality of people, And luckily that is changing a lot, but still a majority of the people are stuck where, India is a land full of culture and everything, but they are the same ones who are watching porn on their phones.
India is, great culture. India is the land of the Kama Sutra.
Of course.
India is the land of Khajuraho.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that we are a very sensual nation and that shows in every area of our life. I mean, look at the way we cook our food.
Look at our population.
Exactly. Where's that come from? Important point. And then Aksar 2 happened. What was the difference? I saw an interview of yours where you said that when they met you for the film, they said, we're not making a hate story. But ended up being far more on the front foot with regards to the erotica.
So I don't know. After I did Hate Story, like a lot of people were looking down on me, especially from the industry, that, because she couldn't act, she decided to strip.
Oh Lord, please. I mean, this comment lacks in imagination completely. Negated.
I'm like, yeah, but there have been a lot who stripped before. So anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I meet this director and he gives me a narration and he has this very polished English saying that, we're not making a hate story. I'm making a genre noir or something like that. And I was like, okay. And then we go on the set and every other scene he is asking me to either end with a kiss or just all of a sudden be in a bra or things like that. And I'm like, you know what? I have no issues doing these things, but you gave me a different brief.
Right.
Now, just because you saw that film made whatever, and this is not going how you must have envisioned or whatever. And now the producers, I mean, that is what was told to me. Later I got to know it was the director who was spineless, because he was going and telling different stories to the producers and coming and telling different stories to me and my costume designer, Shahid Amir. He's a friend.
I know Shahid, love Shahid.
So, and thanks to Shahid, he literally
became like your...
Yeah. Oh my God. Otherwise,
your ball of fire, really.
Yes. Oh God. I love him. So there was so much animosity, because I was thinking that these producers, now they want me to do this just because I've done one certain movie. Now they want me to, either be in a bra or kiss or do something or the other in every scene. And that's not done, You cannot give me a different brief and then on set just behave whatever. And I'm not somebody who's going to throw a tantrum by, no, I'm not going to shoot, because I know that everybody's monies and everything are at stake. So I would always try to talk things out and, come to a middle ground. But yeah, I mean, after the movie was made, everything had just gone so bad that I was not even called for the screening of my own film. And there were like articles that, oh, I'm so unprofessional and this and that. If I really wanted to mess things up, I still have that director's messages that he had sent bitching about the producers to me. I can still do it, but I'm like, what's gone is gone. I don't really need to care about this.
That's extremely unprofessional. I mean, what I do is, if there are scenes of lovemaking or, anything where the actor is going to feel vulnerable, it's in the contract. The scenes are attached to the contract, and then there is no deviation from that. But then also come from a place where I'm an actor before I'm a filmmaker. Yeah. And I understand how vulnerable you feel as an actor. Clarity is what we all want.
Exactly.
Then unfortunately, when you question, they look at you and they say, ye to sawal pooch rahi hai.
Exactly, yes. Especially when you looked down on a film that I've done by saying that, oh, we are not making that. And then what were you trying to do?
Yeah, that's so true. But tell us now about Happy Hippie. What made you move from being a movie star into this space of skincare, which is of course huge business, and the name? Is it your personality that shines forth?
It is, definitely.
Because you gave me a beautiful box when you came in, and the colors were very you.
Yes.
So how did this journey begin?
Well, it began, I think, somewhere just before COVID could hit, or around COVID, and there was a lot happening in life work-wise. I was doing a travel show, I was doing a Punjabi film, a South film, indie film, and all of a sudden COVID happened. A lot of work that was supposed to happen just went away because people were unsure, and people didn't know when things are going to open up.
Yeah, there was a churn throughout, at that time.
So everything that was supposed to happen came at a standstill. Then when, people were still working, unfortunately, I took a backseat because my mom felt really unwell. 2021, April, we lost my grandfather, her father. And it's from that time to now, she's just been completely unwell so much that it's a different person now, because when you have prolonged illness, somehow it affects your mental state more than your physical.
True.
So being this person who has to now take care of all these things, also need to even make money so that I can run my house. There's like too many things happening. I thought that, okay, I need to have something which is going to at least give me some stability and security, because I cannot all the time go begging for work and get rejected. That is when this whole idea came, because I started my YouTube channel also around that time, and I used to get a lot of comments about people asking me about what I do for my skin, and that I've got good skin. Honestly, most of it is genetics. I've got very, very sensitive skin. But yes, being somebody who's got sensitive skin but still wants to take care of their skin, I used to, see all these social media reels of all these self-proclaimed skin experts teaching you 10 steps, 12 steps of skincare routine.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Who has the time? You already have so many routines in life. Now follow one before going off to sleep and one after waking up.
Absolutely.
I cannot. I tried. I could not. I'm very lazy and I have like 10,000 things on my plate. So I said, okay, why not create something for myself which will first of all suit my skin, because I've got very sensitive skin. I've tried creams and things which range from 5,000 to even 500, but nothing would suit me. So it took me almost 2 years with a lot of research and studying. I have a very dear friend by the name of Arshia, who is literally the backbone of my brand. She's been there in the beauty industry for almost 15 years now. She really helped me to, go about understanding the manufacturing, testing different samples. And after 2 years of literally trying multiple things on my own self, I said, okay, now this is something that I have found and I need to share this with people who go through similar struggles, who want to take care of their skin, but don't have the time and don't know where to start. This is just skincare and hair care made easy for people like
Correct.
me.
Well, you've simplified it.
Yeah. There are no 10 routines. It's just one product you apply and it's going to take care of things.
You said that they're gender neutral.
Yeah.
But what all is there in that collection?
So right now, in the launch phase, I have a face wash, all-in-one face serum, all-in-one face cream, and one all-in-one hair oil.
Ah.
So the idea behind Happy Hippie is, of course, right now face and hair, which will eventually also go into body care. And I don't want to create products for the heck of it, to just increase numbers or make money. But I want to give my audience need-based products because I see a lot of brands coming out with a different product every other month. It's not really required. So the less you do for your skin, the better it is. Our country right now is all about Korean skincare.
Yeah, that's all over the place.
Not understanding that Korea has different climate, they eat different food, their genetics are different. India is a gold mine of Ayurveda, of herbs, of so many amazing ingredients that is going to suit the Indian skin. I've tried to do that. I have curated my products with no harmful chemicals, but the best natural products backed up with a little bit of science actors, which is not going to react with sensitive skin.
Correct.
Yes, given it all my heart. And
where do people buy this?
Right now it is online.
Online.
I am already in talks with a marketplace, so it's going to very soon be on one of that. And right now it's only in India, but I definitely have plans of taking it international.
Yeah, and all you have to do is hold your little bottle of serum next to your glowing face and say, look, I use it. This is proof enough.
Yes.
So I think that's it. I mean, you don't need a hard sell.
Yes. And I am, because as I said, I literally created these products because I also want to do skincare.
Yeah.
And whatever's there in the market somehow is not suiting me because having sensitive skin, something with fragrance or something with alcohol doesn't suit my skin.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think it's very wise, I must say. You can afford to wait something out when you have an alternate stream of income.
Yes. And right now, I think we are also in a day and age where, thanks to the digital era and everything, that you're no more begging or on the mercy of other people for work.
True.
You can create your own opportunities, and I'm happy. I'm satisfied. I've always been very content. I've never been this person that, oh my God, I'm so ambitious. I need to be losing my sleep and at number one spot. I was that in school. I was a distinction student, but now I need to make peace with my life because if I die tomorrow, I want to die happy.
I hear you, because with me, it's the same. I said, work that has to come to you will come to you.
Yeah.
The roles find you.
Yeah.
You can't force people to look at you in a certain way. If they lack the imagination or
Exactly.
the eyes, then what do you do?
What do you do?
Because it's so easy otherwise to feel worthless. And what I see is this very strong human being who's sitting in front of me.
Thank you.
Because to go through this, Zareen, being compared, being measured, everything being dissected, and to hold on to yourself. How did you endure that? We share a love for cats as well.
Yeah.
Did your cats keep you content? Being the provider to your mother, being the rock to them?
I think everything, because in my head, I knew that I do not have the option to break. Because if I break, I don't have anybody to fall back on. And if I break, these two people will break more.
True.
So I don't have that option. Pooja, sometime back, I saw your brother's podcast. I resonated with him. I'm getting goosebumps right now. And I was like, oh my God. It's literally even I have lived that way. At a point, you don't have any other option but to just become strong. And when you become that strong, you yourself don't realize. And as I said, I've just been there for my own self. I'm very lucky that I have friends and all of that, but I'm also not that person that, I would go and vent out. Somehow from a very early age, I have been this take care of your own self kind of a girl.
You thought it out first inside.
Yeah. Because I'm like, abhi main kya hi dusro ko bol ke, why to stress other people? When I start feeling that you can't be weak. I don't know, I have a problem showing my vulnerable side or my weak side to people. It's a defect. I know it's not right, but it is what it is.
No, but at the same time, you are vulnerable. You're not somebody who has that hardened kind of exterior, because there are a lot of people you see who develop that shell. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Even I'm like that. I mean, I have a very close-knit group of friends.
Yes.
But for me, I have to first go through the emotion myself.
Yes.
Internalize it and then share with whoever.
Yeah.
So I understand that completely.
Yeah,
because
till the time I can't speak to somebody without crying. I hate crying in front of people. So first I'll do that in my own space, cry, talk to myself, do my thing. Then when I'm comfortable talking to like even the closest friend without having a tear in my eyes and just speak my heart out is when I'll be comfortable talking. Otherwise, I'll just deal with it myself first, process it, everything, and then.
But there's so many people who just absolutely adore you. To young girls who are listening, who've seen your work, who look at you and say, oh my God, she's so gorgeous and we want to look like her. Like you said, you got people telling you that what do you do for your skin? Because you have luminous skin. What do you have to say to them about self-image and about body type?
First of all, just do not follow social media because that is such a big illusion. Nothing that you see online is real. Most of it is Photoshop. The people who are actually doing that are not really happy with themselves. I think the moment a person is happy with what they are, everything is taken care of. Your skin will start glowing.
True.
Your body will get in shape on its own because the thing that holds you from looking a certain way or is yourself.
Yeah.
The more you keep stressing about it, your skin will, look bad, your hair will fall, cortisol levels in your body is going to make you put on weight. So just accept yourself the way you are. There will be 10,000 people. Even when I became a part of the industry, my God, I had like so many people giving so many suggestions and so many advice. And at one point, I did not know what to do because this was a very new field for me, and I'm like, okay, these are like really senior people. They all know. So I am supposed to listen to this one. And I went crazy.
Yeah.
The moment I realized, no, I need to be what I really am rather than trying to be what they're trying to make me. When I found that and when I made peace with that, I've been so peaceful and everything has fallen in place.
No, that's true because I think what you are inside starts showing on your face.
Yes. And you can't pretend. So I've always been this person, who's been so peaceful with herself, even when she was 100 kg. Like when my Nani also used to say, oh, such a pretty face, look what you've done to yourself. And I'm like, what have I done? I used to not feel fat at 100. And then I realized when I became a part of this industry, even at 59, they're calling me fat. And that was messing with my mind. So the moment I said, no, I have to be what I was.
Yeah.
And when I became comfortable and peaceful and just turned back to what I was, I'm so happy and peaceful.
If you look around today at the new lot, very talented, but they're girls. Women out there. We celebrated curves. We celebrated the voluptuous woman always.
Yes.
At what point did we want them to become smaller and more androgynous in that sense? I just can't understand the shift. So even if you look at younger people today, I find even the boys and the girls physically becoming smaller.
Tinier.
Whether they're not spending enough time outdoors and more on their phone.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I'm just finding that people are shrinking overall.
Yes, definitely. Like some of these girls that are right now part of the industry, they just look like they're still in college.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not anybody to judge, but it just looks like it's not fully developed. And then they still want to starve themselves and they still want to like...
And that's what I tell people. I said, listen, I've got natural fillers. People are kind of, when we smile, we've got these cheeks. And people are kind of injecting them. I mean, good luck to them. You do whatever you want to make yourself happy. But then don't try and tell me to lead a life that, fits into your blueprint in that sense.
True, completely
So
true.
we've got these natural fillers, Zareen, and we should smile more. But if you could sit down today with that teenager who was 100 kilos, what is the one thing you'd tell her about the woman she's become today that she would never have believed?
Wow. Well, she definitely became the woman that, that girl that time wanted in her life to take care. Like she wanted somebody that time to take care or maybe give her advice or, just show her the path. And today I am that. So I'm just...
That's wonderful. So, I mean, in terms of work, you found your groove in Punjabi film.
Yeah.
Are you doing more of those films now?
Right now, since I took that long break due to my mother's health, work opportunities are very limited. But now work has started slowly. I don't want to be again doing what I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
I'm a grown-up woman now, so...
I remember when I did Border with JP, he's the only director who told me, listen, I just want you to be the way you are and come eat parathas, put makhan and eat. I'm like,
love
you don't want me to lose weight? He's like, nahi yaar, you look like a Punjabi kudi. And I'm like, that's what it should be.
Exactly, yes. And I'm a Pathan. So Pathan and Punjabis, they are very similar structures, big built and all of that. So I find Punjab home.
And the difference really between the Tamil film industry and Bollywood, is it the work ethic that you find different? Are they more professional?
Yes. The South industry, I've done Telugu rather, not Tamil. Very, very disciplined. Like if they say they are going to start at 9 o'clock, they will not even wait till 9:01. They will start at 9 o'clock. And there is no dilly-dallying happening over there. At least, I mean, I've not done a lot of work there, but whatever little work I did over there, they say pack up at 6, they will pack up at 6. In between shots, like when you're already giving this shot, the other one is already being set up. So it's just so disciplined and, structured and no wasting of time. The hero, no matter how big he is, he'll be on time. Everything is nice. Just one thing I realized, I mean, maybe I am wrong about it. They just don't give that much, credit or consideration to women. No matter whatever you are, when you say something, they'll have that look on the face that she's a woman. Why is she talking?
No, I know what you mean. It's a bit patriarchal. At times, because I remember when we did our background score for Jism, in fact, in Chennai. And there was a whole room full of these musicians. And there was me and Marika D'Souza, who was my production assistant. And they looked at us and said, you two are going to tell us what needs to be done today?
Yeah.
But when you talk about trolling and we talk about the labels that are put on us, how does one prevent that outer noise from then becoming your inner noise? Because there are a lot of people who will be listening to you and they get so upset if somebody puts one negative comment or says something about their appearance. With anybody in the public eye, it's multiplied by 1 million.
Yeah.
How do you keep the clutter out?
I have said this before also, that what I do, my work and all, that is one part of my life. It's not me.
Yeah, so you have a life beyond cinema.
Yes.
You have a life beyond fame.
Exactly. A life beyond everything else where I am me as a human, as Zareen, I mean, we live in a world where there is a population of billions of people. You're not going to be liked by everyone, and that's okay.
And you're not supposed to be liked by everyone.
Yeah, and if you are, then there's something wrong with you. The person that you should be happy and liked by is yourself. When you see in the mirror, you should know that you're a right person so that you can sleep peacefully at night. You've not done some evil shit to somebody and you're not this cunning, conniving person. That should bother you rather than a negative comment of some random person who doesn't even know you.
I think to have the courage to be yourself.
Exactly.
And say, hey, if you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, fine.
It's okay. Yeah.
I mean, I can't please everyone. That in itself is a superpower.
Yeah. And I'm anyways, I prefer animals over human company. So I'm okay if people don't like me. Please don't like me. Let me
as long as my cat likes me.
Cats, dogs, snakes, all animals. There are times when I read these quotes that, humans are compared to snakes. I said, please don't insult the snake. It's so beautiful.
True.
Snakes or any creature, any animal, you attack them or they feel attacked, then they... Unlike humans, where you're just sitting in your own space and you'll still be attacked by another human. So who's more dangerous?
That's true. And when you look back, is there something that you would do differently?
No.
With regards to your career?
With regards to my career, well, I think back in the day, if I knew how much networking and going to parties and everything really... but I don't think I would still do it.
I believe, Zareen, that the day I start getting invited to film parties and I know I'm doing something wrong. I'm very happy being overlooked and not receiving those invitations.
I used to receive a lot in the beginning of my career because of all these PRs and everything. And they said, no, you have to go and meet people. But I'm somebody who doesn't know how to do small talks.
Yeah.
And most of that time, this is an industry that I had no idea about. So there were really senior people or credible people. But unfortunately, I did not know them. So they got all offended. Oh, such an arrogant girl. She didn't come and say hello. But I genuinely did not know her. So that I'll come and say hi. If I knew, I would definitely, because I smile at strangers on the road.
Yeah. Which in itself has become an odd thing. Now in Bombay, I've realized people don't smile anymore.
Yeah.
And if you just say, hello, good morning, like when you're anywhere else in the world, or even when you leave Bombay and go into a small town, saying hello to somebody and waving is not considered odd. But now in Bombay, if you smile, they look at you like
something's wrong with you. They're all so angry. I think the whole construction and the pollution is getting into people.
Yeah, I think our brain cells are dying by the minute. But tell me, you've done films, you've done videos, you've done Punjabi, Telugu, Hindi. Why aren't you on the OTT space? I think that you're ready at this point to play a nuanced character where you can actually sink your teeth into the role and people will see more of you because, a 2-hour film is limiting. So have you got any offers? Are you hoping to do something there?
I am really, really wanting to enter the OTT space, the web space, but I really don't know how do I tap into it, because when the OTT was flourishing, I had taken a little bit of a backseat due to my mother's health, and I think that time everybody made their, parts or their niches there, and now somehow when I try to approach they already have this whole baggage about me that, oh, glamorous and diva and hate story. I don't know when that is going to drop.
But you are glamorous and you are a diva, but you can be very pared down too. I mean, you're
exactly, but that's what they need to see, which somehow they are unable to see. It's so sad, Pooja, that, when I was again doing this whole round, when my mother started feeling a little better and I was going out and meeting directors and these casting directors and these producers, because I, of course, I have no ego that I'm going to be like, I've been in this industry.
Correct.
It's important to go and tell people that you want to work and, consider. And I did that part of mine. In that, after being a part of this industry for 10, 12 years, I get to hear things like, oh, you speak so well Hindi?
Huh?
We didn't know. Because in your films, you've not spoken that much, na? I'm like, yeah, because you all didn't give me an opportunity to speak. Why don't you do that? And I'll show you how well of Hindi I speak and even Marathi.
Wow.
So, yeah, I am really struggling to tap into the web space. I'm really hoping somebody hears this and gives me the role that you're telling me.
People wear their ignorance with such confidence. I've been told that we never knew that you were so interested in your career. We thought that you weren't really interested in acting. And I'm like, when I'm there, I'm all there.
Exactly.
When you speak about getting advice from all quarters, and it's exhausting when you're a newcomer.
Exactly.
Because then you are being polite and you're being like, okay, I have to listen to so-and-so, and you're actually inside screaming in English, shut up!
No, I could, at least you came from a background where, you had your dad and everybody being such a strong figure and already a part of this industry. Here there's somebody who's only seen these people on television and on the screen and they are like, oh my God, we've been fans. And now there are like people whom you don't even know, but they are a part of this industry who are giving you advices and you're like, oh my God, now what do? We have to listen to them because they're there,
No, I understand what you're saying because my mother is very removed from the film industry. She's came with me when I shot my first portfolio and she said, now you're on your own. I'm not going to be that star mother who's going to be coming onto a set. But then when I became a filmmaker, I got closer to my father then because that time before the release, the vulnerability you feel, the loneliness you feel, the filmmaker in him identifies with that and gives me great advice and steers me in the direction I need to go. I can imagine that for you because you come from a family that must be very supportive, but they don't really know the nuances.
They have no idea.
It must have been a very lonely thing also, Zareen, at times.
Yes. Definitely. That's what I said, that I have been my own mother and that, pampered or whatever, taking care of that inner child of mine because I want to come and tell my mom, what do I tell her? She has no idea about this.
Correct.
Then I'll just end up stressing her all the more and that's going to affect her health, which is then going to stress me. So I'd rather deal with it on my own.
Yeah, because even with friends or when you're involved with a man who's not from the business, they don't get how exhausting it is to be on a set for 18 hours and you come back home and sometimes you just don't want to have a conversation with anybody. And then you're expected to be all cheerful. But man, you've done it, yeah? You've done it and you continue to do it and continue to do it. So that's very cool. It's very cool, I must say.
As I said, I don't know whether this is like a superpower or a defect, but whatever it is working for me.
Yeah, I always say, so you got to be a bit of a masochist to want to be in this business and develop a very thick skin then and take it all with like a truckload of salt because no matter who you are and what you do, you can't escape the scrutiny.
Yeah.
And that's why that sense of self is very important. That life beyond the arc lights is very important. This is part of your life. This is not your life completely.
Yeah.
And when you say that loudly enough, they look at you like, how ungrateful.
And how arrogant.
Yeah. How can you want a life beyond films and cinema? So you do get that a lot as well. But I asked you right in the beginning and I want to ask you again. When I said that did Veer become an albatross around your neck? When you're in a Salman Khan starrer, you started here. So were people afraid to approach you after that? Because they thought that maybe you wouldn't be interested in a smaller film or to work with a lesser star in that sense?
Even if that would have happened, I would never know because it never reached me. So I'm completely unaware of that. But I think the whole fact that, whether we did do well or did not do well, the fact that I got a dream debut with one of the biggest superstars of the country is one of the major reasons that I think I am still remembered because there are so many people who come and, who do their debuts and all. But if it is not with like a credible actor or whatever, somehow they're lost. And it's just so unfortunate because maybe these are the people who must have dreamt all their lives about, being a part of this industry. And then there was me who never ever thought of becoming an actress. And got like a dream debut, and thankfully it was with Salman, who our whole family has always been a fan of. So I think because Salman has such a massive following that even when the film did not do well, I am still liked by a lot of people, though I've not really done a lot of work after that. But Salman ki heroine abhi tak mujhe log bolte
Yeah, that's
hain.
true.
So
That's true.
I think somehow whatever it has its, advantages and disadvantages.
No, I completely agree with you. But the thing is that I think that anybody who looks at you and wants to define you and put you into that box of, oh, Zareen Khan, pretty face, beautiful, and leave you there is sadly mistaken, because you're somebody who's self-made, self-taught, you're an entrepreneur, and you work out like a beast. And I know how tough it is. I mean, how many kilos are you squatting now?
I've reached 60, 65.
Amazing. Amazing. And you're deadlifting.
I'm so proud. You said you deadlifted like 100 plus?
110 I reached 3 weeks ago. So
I'm still at 90. Like
the first time I did squats, I thought I was going to die. But now people ask me when I go to the gym, what day is it today? Is it leg day? I said every day is leg day with my trainer.
That's so true. So true.
There's no escaping that one. So yeah, maybe I would love to be in the gym with you one day. We should work out together,
definitely.
man. That'll be quite a trip. But what are your aspirations and dreams for the future with regards to your life as a woman? Forget about the movies for a second. Where do you want to see yourself?
I don't really have any plan for my life. I never had. In fact, the ones that I had have fallen flat now. I don't have any plans. The only thing that I really want for myself is traveling. So before I die, I really want to see each and every corner of this beautiful world. And now I have a niece who is the love of my life. She's just 8 months old. So yeah, I just want to be that person for her that I did not have for myself.
Beautiful. And what are some of the most magical trips you've taken in your life that have possibly had a great impact on your soul?
Oh my God, there's so many. Like, in India itself, there are so many beautiful places. Like I'd gone to Ladakh. And that is like God's canvas. The name Happy Hippie, I had gone to Ladakh in 2019. That time I wanted to have a production house and I was actually thinking for a name for that. And I was thinking all these random names with my name in it. And then I just saw those mountains and I just saw that everything is so big and you're just nowhere compared to that, and that whole thing of Happy Hippie, because I realized every time I'm outside, I'm just so happy. I don't care. And my mother used to call me as a kid, because I never had that typical way of dressing. I used to love those very jhalli type, like my mother's like, what are you always dressed up like a hippie? I couldn't understand at that time. Now I do.
So you're a free spirit.
Yes, definitely.
In more ways than one.
Yes, and I can never be caged.
Yeah. And even when we do manage to get caged, we forget that the lock is actually on the inside of the cage. So nobody can really imprison our spirit. So
and we do imagine, like, after being such strong women and all, just in the name of love, we still do cage ourselves sometimes, only to realize that we can't.
No, that's true. But then I think then we start believing that we're supposed to play a part.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to sacrifice a part of your soul or part of your personality to keep the equilibrium. And then you realize that, hey, someone either get you for you with all of your flaws, or it's just not going to work. I mean, the honeymoon is going to end beyond that point.
Because at some point you will start feeling unhappy
and lonely in a relationship.
Yeah. And who wants that? Then you can be by yourself and
absolutely.
be happy.
That's so true. So is there anything you would like to ask me, my dear?
Oh my God, I love you, Pooja. I love you. The call that you gave me, I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't believe it. I don't know if you remember some years back when you were making Cabaret and I had come to meet you.
Yes, of course I remember. I remember you came to my home in Bandra and you saw my cats.
Yeah.
Then you showed me your 14 cats and how you watched them on video all the time.
Yeah. And there's this one compliment you had given me that time that, you were planning to make a film on the late Parveen Babi.
Yeah.
And you're like, if you see anybody playing that is you. But if you see anybody in a little younger version is me. And oh my God, that has stuck with me. I think somewhere that strength has also come because I have idolized you from a very early age where, you had that amazing magazine cover. And I'm like, wow, she's done this at that time.
Yeah.
Like, this is guts, this is guts. Right now, everybody is so pretentious because they're worried, oh God, I don't know what is going to be written, and oh my God, we're going to be clicked and social media.
It's all curated.
It's just so pretentious right now. So I love you and I look up to you so much. I idolized you. So I need to tell you that.
Thank you. But when I look back, at all those covers that you talk about, and especially the body painting one, which Anna Singh did for me.
I know, Anna. Oh my God.
It was not even planned, that we are going to create this impact. I was shooting for Phir Teri Kahani Yaad Aayi.
That's one of my favorite
packed
films.
up and then went to Jagdish Mali's studio. God bless his soul, he's not alive anymore. And we just did it. And coming back to what we said earlier, that if the intention is pure and you don't feel what you're doing is vulgar, it doesn't look like that. Of course, there was a certain section that went completely mad and wanted to put me in jail and, all of that
jail
stuff.
and all?
Yeah. It was very dramatic.
Wow.
But I remember my boyfriend at that time, he saw the Polaroid and he was like, "You've done this?" So I resonated with you when you said that to me, And I said, yeah, I've done this because I felt it was okay to do. So I think as long as we stand by what we do.
Exactly.
And especially our mistakes, because mistakes are the dues you pay for a full life.
And that's what made us what we are today. Like
Yeah.
if we made no mistakes, what stories would we tell aage jaake?
But by the way, I don't know if you remember, I owe you a pair of
Sunglasses,
round
the red
glasses.
ones, I remember.
In fact, I looked for them this afternoon and I said, damn, I've put them away so safely, but I owe you those red glasses and I'm going to get them for you. So you can look through the world with rose-tinted glasses in the real sense. I'm going to do that.
Oh my God. Rose-tinted glasses by Pooja, but what more do I want?
No, but thank you. You've been so generous to me.
Thank you.
Always. And your warmth is something that means a lot. We've met a few times. But whenever I met you, I've always felt this palpable feeling of love and warmth.
Which is there, which is so genuine. Maybe that's why you're feeling.
No, you've been very generous. You are very generous. And I think that you're an amazing woman, Zareen. The fact that you are the provider to your family and you do it with such joy.
Yeah.
It's not a burden for you in that sense. You wanted to be that person. And I think that when you come and you give me your box which says Happy Hippie, beautifully designed box, I wish you the very best on this journey of yours. Hopefully we are on a set someday.
Yes, I would love that.
And we're shooting together. And if there's any lovemaking, it'll be in your contract and you'll be absolutely comfortable and you will fly.
I love that.
So thank you so much for doing this and sitting down with me. Means the world.
Same.
Thank you. The Pooja Bhatt Show is produced by Mammoth Media Asia and Epilogue Entertainment and distributed by iHeart Podcasts. The executive producer is Jonathan Strickland.